Let me feel for a minute. I called in Neptune, and so I think maybe we'll have a little fun with the astrology, because I didn't do a YouTube video for the Cancer full moon. And then let that kind of guide us in to where we're going. So we'll start with Neptune, which is exactly trying to the retrograde Mars, which is conjunct the moon right now. This is actually making a grand water trine. And so a grand water trine on a Cancer full moon, and the first Cancer full moon in over a year, feels really important. The Scorpio aspect of this Cancer full moon water grand trine is Prosperpina. Now, that's a very elemental, fairy sort of energy. It's also connected to creative abundance. And we don't often equate the Cancer moon with abundance. We tend to look more at maybe a Capricorn, but definitely a Taurus, a Libra, these more Venusian energies. But when we think about the true nature of Cancer, that genetic code sort of energy of Cancer, we can start to feel the actual connection to abundance that exists there. Neptune is dreamy energy, and we're kind of keying ourselves in right now to the conjunction on the 2nd of February. It's actually going to be really active starting the 31st of January, when both the mean and true nodes are at 29 of Pisces. And then the 2nd of February, we'll have the moon, Venus, Neptune, and both the nodes, the mean and true, at 29 of Pisces. There is a ask of us, I feel like, in this Cancer full moon. When we feel the cardinal grand cross that it's making, the sun, the moon, and Mars, Eris, the goddess of discord, chaotic creation, and Arcturus, which is currently exactly conjunct with the rose dragons. It is to allow our full self to be held compassionately. And now we're going to go in to the piece that came through this morning, that there is an inherent longing, even in the word belonging. And what we can start to understand when we see the structure of that word, belonging, is that when we come into embodied form, when our soul takes root in the body, we have this longing to return to wholeness, because we feel that we have separated from it in some way. There was another piece that wanted to be expressed, and it's connected to the cardinal grand cross energies. We can feel, as the astrological wheel opens, as the astrological year opens with Aries, that I am. And when we come into contact with the I am, there's a question. Well, then, if I am, what is everything else? Am I part of everything else? Am I separate? You start to play around with your individuality, your expression of being embodied. And then you come into the Taurus energy, right? Embodied. You come into an embodied expression, Taurus, Gemini, and then you find your Cancer. You find that, but now that I understand that I'm a soul, I am a soul expressed, embodied expression of a soul. What does that mean about where I belong? And this is why Cancer, the fourth house, is the bottommost point of the astrological wheel. Whatever we happen to have individually at that point of RIC, it is the place where we do the deepest probing about what it means to be in longing for connection. And then you can start to feel the other cardinal, the seventh house, Libra, in that, right? Belonging, seeking for connection. Maybe sometimes we'll get some performative action in the fifth house with Leo, but we're creating interactions through that. We find our purpose, our wholeness again, as we heal anywhere where we were trying to one up or say, look at me, look at me, look at how amazing I am, with that Leo energy, as we come into a deeper connection and the horizon line opens up. We start working above ground in the world around us. The Capricorn, we start to build new structures, found ourselves, explore how we might work in the world, having discovered that I am longing for belonging, longing for connection. We can then build the structures and feel where we are building the structures from places where we crave egoic belonging, might be a way to say it. I don't want to demonize the ego because it's a very necessary aspect of our being, but let's see. I just heard there's a story to share. Some of you know that I spent my late teens and my early 20s doing Grateful Dead and Fish tour with the band Fish, traveling around the country. And there is something that was expressed in a movie that had one of the characters was an old deadhead. And her sister in this movie was like, oh, you had that time when you were on mushrooms and you were going all over the place seeing this band, and I think you maybe got a little wacky, you went a little too far out there. And she was like, that's not why I was there. I wasn't there for drugs. I was there for the music, but that was only part of it. The real thing that got me there, that kept me there, because the music alone wouldn't have done it, is the connection. I came into contact with all of these people who did not fit in the family they were born into, in the society, in the neighborhood, in the schools, in the structures that they were born into. And they found this one thing that they adored. And it could have been the music, it could have been traveling, it could have been any aspect of what that was. But they found their family. They found a group of like-minded souls who all felt this same thing very deeply, and they could bond through that. And I really enjoyed that description of what it was to be on Grateful Dead or Fish tour, because that was very true. we called each other our family, it was the family. But one of the things that is also true is we were young, and it wasn't like we'd been doing shadow work. We were doing shadow work with each other in many ways. And so all of the wounds that we had regarding trying to prove ourselves worthy of love came to that family with us. And then we brought that into the relationships and the interactions, and sometimes wielded it like a weapon against one another. And so there was a spirit of one-upsmanship that's still very active, especially in the fish community. Like, well, were you at that show? Oh, if you missed that show, I can't believe da 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 da. Like all these like things about I need to prove my worth by making sure that I'm at and inside every show. But there was another aspect to it. And we used to call it Jedi aspect. And this is coming into another part of the energy of this full moon, which is the remembering that what we are is souls having an embodied experience, honing our skills at creation magic. And that doesn't necessarily just mean manifesting money or a house or a job or this, that, the other thing. It's literally creation. Everything is an act of creation when you're embodied on the earth plane. And so what we would do, I never left my house with more than $1.75 and change, and would travel all over the entire country and go to every single fish show or every single dead show. And it was almost a game. Like, can you arrive at a parking lot with no money and find food, connection, maybe drugs if that's your thing, and get into the show? And we were honing those skills of creation magic. Can you find your way to pass through undetected the turnstile? Or find the person who has a ticket that just has been waiting to give it to you? And so there's that aspect of the experience as well. One of the things that in these many, many, many years now, since I was doing that actively, that I've learned is that when we talk about abuse of power, we can sometimes accuse a young learning soul of abusing power because they're just figuring out that they even have any to begin with. And that's a difficulty for those of us who have been around a little bit longer, because then we'll do that to ourselves too. Like, oh, I shouldn't have been, I was definitely abusing power when I was Jediing my way into fish shows because I should know better. But no, I needed to remember. I didn't know who I was when I was 18, when I was 17. I was still trying to remember. I'm still trying to remember, and I'll be 50 in June. And that's part of it as well. Like, this wobble that we're in between Aries and Pisces North Node, Libra and Virgo South Node, is a really beautiful invitation to, in some ways, let ourselves off the spiritual hook a little bit. That doesn't mean go into like bypass mode or let all of your rituals fall away because you're like, oh, I don't have to do anything. Everything's just play now. It's more observing the places where you have been a strict taskmaster and Your spiritual practices have become rote, routine, a chore, an obligation, as opposed to an invigorating, enlivening expression of the union between your soul and your embodied existence. We have ritual burning of incense, or me putting together crystal grids, because they help set intention. But they are not the actual magic. They are an aspect of our expression of the magic, an aspect of our expression of creation. Hmm. We'll talk about Venus and Saturn conjunct right now for just a moment, and share that Anubis, the jackal-headed Egyptian god of the underworld, of resurrection, of the Akashic records, is exactly conjunct Venus right now. As we move through this energy of the Cancer full moon and it begins to wane, Venus and Anubis will come into an exact conjunction with Saturn. They're not quite exact right now. Anubis and Venus are at 11 degrees. Saturn is at 15. As they do, they will pass through an exact square with Jupiter, still retrograding in Gemini at 12 degrees. We can remember that Isis is an expression of Venus, that the Isis priestess schools of ancient Egypt were a Venusian, by which I mean a divine feminine. So we could go back to Inanna, expression of creation magic. When we connect to what the Essenes, Essence were doing, what the Cathars were doing, still are. It is a long, 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 long ancient tradition of divine union. For some, it's sex magic. And this was what Magdalena and Yeshua were engaged in, John the Baptist as well. The act of physical union, helping to bring the light body into greater union because of the set of intent. Every time you have sex is not that. But if the intent and the union, if the two people who are engaged in this act are of the same frequency, by which I mean intent, it can help to bridge the connection. Just like if a man and woman have sex and the conditions are exactly right, you can call another soul into form. You can open a bridge to the other side and allow passage of a soul to take root in the womb. One of the rememberings of Anubis, Anubis wants to come in for this one, of an ancient truth is that sex magic does not necessarily, or creation magic does not necessarily involve sex. We can sit beneath a tree in the sun with the intent that we come in through the roots of the tree and the heart of the sun into greater connection. We activate the codes within us that bring more of our divinity into our beings. When light activations, frequency meditations, anytime we working together or on our own, experience that trance state of union where we allow the receipt and the transmission of energy. We're alivening more of our light body. That's why I call them light activations most often, even if it's not like an activation in the truest sense. Sometimes it's an anchoring. It could be any level of any random ass words you want to use, honestly. But it's an activation of the Ka body. It is us coming into greater connection with our divinity. When we remember that Anubis was the one that shared the resurrection rites with Isis to bring Osiris back, we remember that sometimes the sun holds the key to the union. And sometimes it comes from unexpected places. It's quite possible that Osiris would never have been in this dismembered situation if he hadn't conceived Set, illegitimate son, right? Like Set, his brother, dismembered him because he had a child with his wife. But prior to that, he and Isis couldn't conceive. So how do we I see what you did there. How do we forgive ourselves for abuses of power or perceived abuses of power, perceived sins, falling short of perfection? And here we have the rose dragons conjunct Arcturus, right? The rose dragons who, with the Hathors and the Arcturian energies in general, invite us to empowered compassion and detached service, to remember that at any moment in time, we only have a slight sliver of the whole picture. So when we cast judgments on ourselves, when we cast judgments on others, because we think that the thing that they're doing is wrong, we limit our ability to perceive the vast potential that's available. Now, this doesn't mean that we can't look at a situation and say, that feels wrong to me. We can look at an injustice. We can look at an imbalance in our society, might be a better way to say that, from our perspective. And say, from my perspective, from my view, the way that it feels in my being might even be a better way to say it, is that is causing pain. And then allow that knowing within ourselves that that thing, because really what it's doing is it's causing us pain. Whatever it might be doing to the vast cosmos, interplay of, the cycles of evolution, or, what have you, it's causing us pain. And so recognizing that we're being hurt by something is important, and that's the Pisces North Node. There is one of the most powerful expressions of the Pisces North Node being that recognition that pain exists, being that recognition that we experience pain while we're in bodies. And sometimes even when we're souls, we have been kind of taught that the soul is feel how this wants to be said. Okay. The way that I'm going to share this is, instead of using the word soul, we're going to use higher self. That the higher self has all the answers. Just trust in your higher self. Ask your higher self. Your higher self knows. And so then if we get led by our higher self into something that hurts, we can go into a state of retreat from higher self, because somewhere within us we believed that the higher self doesn't have its own wounds, that once we aren't in bodies, somehow we know everything. Like, oh, it's just the amnesia of earthly embodiment that creates the sense that there's not, like, we don't have all the information. It is true that the higher self knows way more, because it remembers way more than we have, at least in the last few thousand years, as embodied beings on the earth plane. But it does not mean that the higher self is not also experiencing an evolutionary process. I mean, even God is experiencing an evolutionary process. Everything is evolving. When we hear the terms "a more perfect union," which is what they used to say about the United States coming into eminent domain, all of this land, right? But really what a more perfect union is that constant state of seeking for more truth, more union with the divine. So when we are talking about anchoring the light body, we are talking about connecting more and more of our higher self, our soul, in with our embodied being. We aren't saying now we're going to be perfect. What we're saying is this allows us to remember more of our wholeness. And through that, remember that we were never not whole anyways. That's the biggest truth. And we can see more of the picture. And because we can see more of the picture, maybe we can say, oh, I can see why my higher self steered me in that direction, because this was something that I needed to learn. There's a passage in Tom Kenyon's Hathar's book where he's talking about how he found his way out of the music business in Nashville. And he was a singer and a songwriter, and he was like, he could feel that he was just on the cusp of cracking, like getting to the next level of his career, really breaking through. And all of a sudden, there was this big explosion outside his house, and he was now like out of money. It was like, either I make it or I have to go home. And the explosion outside of his house was his van, the engine basically blowing up. So now he couldn't get to his job, so he couldn't make any more money. And then a day later, an acquaintance of his was like, oh, I'm driving to North Carolina tomorrow. Do you want to come with me? He's from North Carolina. And he was like, well, I have to go. And then as he came back to North Carolina, they stopped at one teacher's house, and then they taught his friend who gave him the ride was going to see this medium give a talk. And he was like, oh, I'll tag along. That sounds interesting. And he was sitting there. And while he was sitting there, she brought through, one of you has experienced a automotive explosion, and it's changed the course of your life. And he was just like, what the? And then she invited everyone to talk to her assistant that had booked a one-on-one with her. And he was like, I don't have a one-on-one booked, but after she just said this, and there was a couple of other things that she said that seemed like she was speaking directly to him, I need to go and see if I can book one. And the assistant was like, oh no, she's fully booked. There's no way. And all of a sudden she came and she put her hand on the assistant's shoulder and was like, you can find a spot for him right here. And so they had their one-on-one, and he didn't know what to expect. But when he got there, it was, oh, by the way, that your van's engine exploding, that was a divine intervention, because you were just about to break through. You were just about to explode onto the music scene in Nashville, but that was not what you came here to do. And it would not have actually been true. You were gifted this voice because you're here to channel and create these, be a vessel for these beautiful sound meditations and angelic frequencies, and channel Kuan Yin and the Hathars and Magdalena and all of these things. And I remember at one point sharing that story with someone, and they were like, well, that's shitty. And I was like, yeah, I mean, from the human ego perspective of wanting to be a big country music star, but do you think that he feels incomplete, or that he missed out on something now that he's doing the thing that he actually came here to do? Probably not. And that was not why he shared the story in the beginning of the Hathar materials. And I kind of, I sense that I'm sharing that little story that he brought in as an invitation for each of us to look at those places where we felt right on the cusp of something that was the thing that we wanted more than anything in the world, or thought we did. And something happened. It doesn't have to be as big as the car exploding. Something happened. And all of a sudden, we found ourselves on a completely different trajectory. I can share that for myself. Like, I thought I was going to open a restaurant when I got back from France in 2011, at the end of 2011, beginning of 2012. But I also was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I was in so much pain that even as I was working in a kitchen and making food, there were days when I could barely move. And so then by the time 2013 happened, I had my first surgery and I couldn't, like, that was gone. But that moment, that first surgery, led me down a path that was, yes, extraordinarily painful. It was basically a 7-year long dark night of the soul. Just so much happening. But it redirected my life. And it's how I find myself now sitting here, bringing all of this information through. Could I have become a successful chef? Probably. Sure, why not? Was it what I came here to do? No. No. And I mean, honestly, sometimes I still think about it when I go and have dinner with other chef friends of mine, or I make a really nice dinner for someone that I love, or friends. So someone that I love, friends. Even when I bring the teas and other, like, more edible members treats through, I can feel that. Like, oh, this is something that I really love. But I can also feel that it is the thing that I really love about it is that it's creation. It's taking something from raw materials, from the ether, really, and bringing it into form. Because I don't cook from recipes, not even baking, really. I have an inspiration and then I make the thing. That's how the members treats come through. A tea is like, oh, here, this flower and this flower and this flower. And I'm actually drinking one right now that when it came through, I was like, really? I can't imagine those things tasting good together. And turns out that they're absolutely delicious. It's butterfly pea flower and cinnamon and red clover and red rose. Part of the, oh, that's fun. Thank you. Part of the honing of the skills of our creation ability is trust. I feel like we need to let that sit there for a couple of moments. Most of the time, if I find myself having a hard time bringing something into form, it's not that it doesn't desire to be brought through, or that it's not true for it to be brought through. It's that I don't trust myself wielding the power that it requires to bring it through, to be that open. Or that I don't trust the source. A lot of us have some pretty deep wounds around the all mother, all father that stems back way, 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 way back from our emergence from source. Some of us have those wounds integrated through our own birth parents in this life and many others. Most of us live in societies where only certain types of creation are deemed acceptable. And releasing those programs is also part of it. Hmm. Okay. There is another wound that I'm being asked to talk about a little bit, and that's the wound of not being given a seat at the table. And I'm going to invite the image of Da Vinci's The Last Supper to help with that. For most people, there's not even a single female at that table. For some, Magdalene is hidden in plain sight with a little baby bump. But there are so many souls who were part of that story that are not present at all, that have never been talked about at all. And for those souls who were not given a seat at the table, there can be a very deep wound of feeling unworthy. Some of it was that let me feel. There was an understanding that for this story, a single person would hold more weight, would be easier to connect with than a whole group of people. And you could have a group, but it needed to be small enough that people could actually wrap their minds around it. But a lot of it was also that the stories were picked and chosen by a conclave of powerful people who wanted to wield the stories to use power against others, to hold other people in their sway. This is why in the Roman Church, the doctrine that only the clergy are actually allowed to read the Bible even still holds true. So when we look at the Inquisition and the massacre of the Cathars, the hiding of the Essenes, part of what we're feeling when we feel the pain of the crucifixion is not just this one being dying for our sins, but of our entire reason to act being stripped away and taken from us. And that was no one between myself and God. That's what the Virgo South Node is going to be working with for us over this next 18 months, in the Pisces North Node, helping us to Remember all of the ways that we allowed somebody else's idea of perfection to color what we believe is divine. And the pain that we have experienced through that, through allowing other people to come between us and ourselves. Now, we could go so far as to believe that that means that the Cathars didn't have teachers or priests, or whatever word you want to use there, but that's not also true. It was more like an advisory role, though, I guess would be a way to look at it. And this is part of the journey of this cycle. The next 18 months, we will have the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. And then as Saturn and Neptune and Uranus fully anchor into their new signs, they're going to be starting to do this year, but they will fully anchor towards the end of 2026 and the beginning of 2027. The North Node will move into Aquarius, the sign where Pluto now is. This part of the cycle we get to really connect with and clean up our relationship with perfection, with and I feel this, it's hard to put words into, but I can feel that like tears are with the belief that we are anything less than divine. For how can we truly shift with this planet into the new era, and an era where amnesia is no longer a prerequisite for incarnation, if we aren't willing to take those steps into remembering who we are. Now there's one more piece, and then I think we're going to have the light activation, but it came in just now as a don't forget to talk about this. We have an alignment coming up, a planetary alignment coming up on the 25th. It's active this whole month, but it's really active between the 25th and the days right after the Aquarius new moon, which is on the 29th. All of the planets of our solar system bridging across the elliptical in our night sky. We'll have Venus and Mercury, Jupiter, Mars. Today, if you look up in the sky, Mars is going to pass through the moon, or the moon's going to pass through Mars, whichever way you want to look at it. Saturn and Uranus and Neptune, if they were visible to the naked eye, Saturn's so close to Venus that even though in a really dark sky you could be able to see Saturn, it will be hard because Venus is so bright. But on the 25th, if you go out to a dark high point and watch the sunset, you'll see all of these planets line up. It's not something that never happens. It's not like, oh, this is the most rare of rare things, but it's pretty rare. This particular one holds an energetic template, however. And so finding your way to travel with that alignment on the 25th is part of the invitation, but that's not what I'm really here to talk about in this moment. In December of 2020, the solstice, Saturn and Jupiter conjunct. So it was a very big conjunction. People called it the Great Conjunction. People are calling this the Great Alignment. You can start to feel their connection here. Last year, we had Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. That was playing off of the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. The cycle that began with that 2020 conjunction really began in 2012, really began in 2008. You could keep going back, but it's been a progression, right? Everything's a progression. We move through time, especially on this planet. We kicked off a part of the cycle with that Saturn-Jupiter conjunction that started us on a path that through the evolutionary journey of the embodied soul on Earth or anywhere else, we had not, and I mean universally, has not been tread before. There's a couple ways to bring this in. One is a remembering that in no other, I'm going to use the word project, soul project, embodiment project, evolutionary experience project, creative experience project, earth school, other school, dimensional realities, all the things. In no other instance have we brought the soul into the level of density that we had reached at that point. That is also when we started to climb back up. But all of the movement now is in uncharted waters. There is a level of, you know how a lot of teachers are like, everyone, a lot of channels are like, the entire universe seems to be watching what's going on Earth with like popcorn and bated breath. Like they're watching this like, oh, what? Oh my God, they're gonna do this next? And like, I get chills thinking about it. Because I can feel them all like coming in. Yes, this is part of it. The thing that I'm being asked to help us remember is Pluto moving into Aquarius. Us beginning this new cycle doesn't instantaneously put all of us into this, like, oh, we all have our perfect, beautiful light body attainment and karma is gone and yeah, da, 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 da. What it means is that we hit a point where now we're going up again. But that point from which we're going up is so much more dense than any soul has ever experienced before. So the first couple of years of that climb are likely to be quite intense. We could see a lot of pain around us. And I think, when we connect to the Pisces North Node, this is part of that energy as well. Coming into a releasing of lots and lots of old, stuck, dense energy as we climb back up. The shamans of Peru have a belief that seems to coincide with the flood energies and the fall of Atlantis, that for the last maybe 10,000 years or so, the human being has been in a state of de-evolution, having their rememberings of their connection to their divine selves kind of stripped away is what they mean by de-evolution. And that at this point, the December solstice in 2020, the bottom was hit. And the new souls coming in, the new ones being born from around that point and a little earlier, are starting to come in with greater remembering of who they are. It doesn't mean that nobody in that intervening point, I mean, we wouldn't have the shamans telling the stories if that was true, remembers things, but the majority of the humans on the planet were in a state of forgetting. When we look at feel how this wants to be said. The demonization of the of the material. When we look at the Theosophists, the alchemists of the 1800s, seeing science birthing in the way that it was birthing, and the removal of interaction, and the idea that the human was no more than like a robot, a machine. The thing that they were touching in on was that greater and greater separation as the spiral, the drill dug in deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. It's funny, I said that, and then they started doing some sort of construction. They've been quiet this whole time, and all of a sudden there's this. Yeah. That is kind of an intense place to bring us into the meditation, but it's also where we're supposed to bring ourselves into it from. So I'm going to invite everyone to maybe shake off a little bit of, you've had a lot of talking, a lot of information coming through. And so shake it off in whatever way you like to shake things off. For me, I'm going to roll my head around a little bit, wiggle my shoulders. I'm going to grab this very Venusian frequency spray and spray it around myself. Take some deep breaths as you close your eyes. Let them be nice and big, deep inhales and full exhales. You may even want to exhale both through your mouth and your nose if that feels all right. And when you're ready, after a couple of cycles of that breathing, allow your breath to return to its natural rhythm. Allow your awareness, your consciousness, your mind to move into your heart. Allow your breath to help guide it if that works for you. Simply let your sight begin to emerge from the center of your heart. Keeping most of your awareness there in your heart space now. I invite you to take some of your awareness down into your root, down following the energy of your root chakra, of the tip of your tailbone down into the earth, to your earth star chakra. Yourself to start to feel this grounding energy, this nurturing, rooted, safe, secure, feel how your breath gets a little bit slower and deeper. Now, with most of your awareness in your heart, some of your awareness in your root, I invite you to open your channel. You may feel this as a sort of V-like opening from your root, expanding out around you. So Oh, Tatasan, Hashikini, and Tasan, and Hitrakandai, Jashandiki, and Dariatos, Yatashandikina, Rakanariatas, Inigata, Nanasan, Salatis Kanan, Aseriatan, Koyashan, Yanas, Kadarakandai, Osan, Ayanasha, Ayadorokandi, Aisasa, Oh, Diana. Ocean, Ayatas, Higan, Ayaluna, Dasa, Oh, Yatanana, feel the vessel filling, oh, your vessel filling. Ikao dandarasai shini gadianayato sandaka. Feel the energy, this light, this you, this majesty penetrating through the very molecular structure of your body. Oh, Gadanda Salarkanina Shayadadandaka. Awu Dadanda Sin. Oshanda Kalan. Inanda Salakos. Tishayo Yatataskada. Huya. Tasati Doya 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 Goya. Kanaya Das Avush Katainana. Gohi and the Sasamini at the Goyananas. A gift. Soft pink light rains down upon you now. Filling you with this love, unconditional, remembering, you are this. With your awareness still in your heart and at your root, allow yourself to connect to the source of that light now. Feel how this creates another V, another cone that intersects with that V that opens from your root. And allows more connection. With your truth. Indaloni basa. Shanaya dasanakaya mushani. Kesana dashandaya datakai. From the center of the center of the center of the center of this upward facing pyramid, from that point down, royal blue light spirals down, entering the soft spot of your crown, flowing down through your pineal, your Venus point, your brainstem, down through your spine, this royal blue light connects with the flame of blue in your heart, which sparks anew, growing, 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 as this light continues to flow through your creative centers, through your root, the point of that downward facing pyramid, where it expands out and connects with the earth's grid, a seeding, a gift for you and given by you. Receive and transmit. It's not in no awareness now. You come back fully into your heart, releasing that point above you, releasing that point at your root. Allow your breath to help you stabilize, equalize all that you have received and all that you have transmitted. Inviting the light all around you to connect with the light all in you as you breathe. Breathing in. Breathing out. Feel your body maybe humming a bit, but there, whole, connected to the floor, to the chair, to the earth. And feel your heart beating, your breath flowing in and out. And feel the air on your skin. Let the stabilization happen, the equalization happen in that way, which is true for you. If that means shaking, then shake. If that means spiraling, drilling it in, then that is what's true. It is sitting very still and allowing everything to come back. That is beautiful too. And when you're ready, taking your time, you can begin to blink your eyes open, coming more and more fully back to this place, this plane where you are in this moment. Oh, mm, I highly recommend lots of water, grounding foods. You can sit on a rock or with a tree, or even just on a hardwood floor, bringing more and more of this energy into union with your physical form will be really helpful. However, that works best for you. And this was a pretty big light body activation, to be certain. Mm. Taking me a little longer to come back than usual, even. Take a couple more breaths. A little tea. Mm. Mhm. This is not necessarily going to be true for everyone, but with the current of energy that we're traveling right now and with the nature of what just came through, You might notice some joint or muscle stiffness in the next couple of days, especially around the area of the brainstem and in the hips. You might also notice your heart chakra cracking open a bit more, which can sometimes feel like indigestion or like really intense pain right in between your shoulders. Go easy with yourself, and if you can take a bath or a shower to help with some of that, allow yourself a lot of rest as you integrate. In general, I can say that for myself, and I have a feeling that some of this is also the current that we're in collectively, allowing more time for rest, this part of the cycle in particular, feels really important. For myself personally, I have been given strict instructions by my higher self that at least one day a week has to be just for me, like rest, reset, watch some random kids movie on TV or go for a long walk, but things that sing to me very specifically at least one day a week. And if that feels true for you, or maybe it's 2 hours every day or 1 hour every day, or whatever you can find, but something that's just for you. We have all, over the last few years in particular, been doing so much work, not just in the physical, but in our dream times, a lot of us, that we run a strong risk of burnout if we don't really pay attention to what we need as we move through this next current, because a lot's going to be asked of us as more and more people start to see their shadows, start to see their shadows. Is that where I'm leaving us? I think that's where I'm leaving us. um, there is one final little note, for those of us, this particular transmission, like the Capricorn new moon, is going to stay open for our whole community. For those of us who are part of the container of the members portal, I'm going to have another special little something coming through. I think it's coming through on the 21st, which is the half moon. But I will keep you guys posted in the portal when I know more. When I know more, I will share it. Thank you so much, loves. All who are here live and all who are watching the replay. Thank you.